Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So, welcome back to Germany. For new viewers who are maybe not aware, Maddie and I lived in Germany for basically an entire year. So we were living in a small town just outside of Frankfurt called Langen. And so that meant that this gym that we are climbing at today, Studio Bloc Darmstadt, was one of our home gyms. So this gym, Maddie and I have visited a lot over the years, and we have frequently done some pit stops for training before a European World Cup in this area. And we just fell in love with the Studio Bloc gym, and it was just always such great training, such great setting, that this gym in particular really sparked the idea to move to Germany and live here for a little bit of time. That in combination with the fact that Maddie's extended family is German and she speaks German, and just thought it would be cool to experience the culture for a while. So anyway, we are back in our second home, and yep, we're training at Studio Bloc today. And since the last episode of COMPCLIMB, which would have been, we were climbing at La Crux, we were doing some training at Rose Block as well. I have had a 5-day rest week. So just about halfway through that rest week, we flew to Europe. And what I did actually was on day 3 of the rest week, I did something that I have been implementing for about maybe a year and a half or so, and has been a really good game changer in regards to the normal rest weeks that I take. So the idea is that I just went to the gym on day 3 and did a pretty long session of just easy bouldering. So I probably climbed for almost an hour and a half, but I capped my difficulty quite low. So I was really trying not to exert my grip too hard, because the idea is that we're still in a rest week and we're still trying to not do any training and allow my body to recover from all of the intense weeks of training that we've had. We're coming off a really intense training cycle, and the only way that training is going to be valuable for us is if we rest and allow our body to rebuild all the muscles we are breaking down and turn it into strength and gains. So I need to make sure that I have a nice amount of rest days under my belt in order for my body to do this. And so while this activation session is really, really good for helping me come back faster after a rest week, I have to make sure I take it easy. And also really quick, let's check out this move. So man, this gym is, there's a reason we wanted to move to Germany to train at this gym. The setting is really, really sick. That was obviously a very cool move that I figured out some beta for. And actually, if you go back and rewatch the ending, check out the way I grabbed that second last hold while I was reaching for the finish. I think that was the tip of the day in the most recent episode. And I found myself doing it again. And that's where I pressed my thumb on the blocker hold while I was grabbing the edge, and that helped give me more stability. And we were literally just talking about this in the last episode, which was quite cool. And honestly, I said during that tip of the day as well that I've kind of forgotten about that technique, and I probably missed some other good instances where I could have implemented it. And when I do these tips of the days, often they'll act as a really great reminder for myself to just be more conscious and aware of some techniques that I already know about. And even just a really good reminder is super, super useful for me. Maybe if I hadn't talked about that tip of the day in the last episode, I wouldn't have seen it there. But since it was at the forefront of my mind, it helped me find that immediately, which was awesome. And that's also why with some of the tips of the days I don't even look for some secret brand new idea or technique that maybe a lot of people haven't heard about. and maybe I'll like to talk about something a bit more obvious. And it's simply because like reminders are super important of things that you already know and maybe become so second nature to the point where you actually just start to forget to implement them from time to time. And it's the same thing with myself. Honestly, forcing myself to really think about what I'm doing and come up with a tip of the day for every one of these episodes is really great for my own training and climbing. So yeah, and also that tip of the day I learned how to do in this gym, the thumb press on the blocker hold. I learned that on an Eric Heldman boulder and he told me to try it and it worked. So yeah, we are coming off a 5-day rest week, and within that 5-day rest week, I did, like right smack in the middle, I did my easy activation session. And I indeed was able to control myself and just stick to easy boulders because obviously so I did this activation session at this gym, and this gym is so big and we're gonna go through so many boulders today. It was really hard to resist trying all of these epic boulders, but I was able to, which I was proud of. And yeah, if you are someone who takes rest weeks, or at least wants to, but doesn't like the rust that you feel after a solid 5 days off or so of doing absolutely nothing, an activation day in the middle is really, really key. Not even in the middle. I just try to take an activation day and then have the last day of rest week and then go into training. Because like, as you'll notice, we're already trying some hard boulders right off the bat. And usually this will not be how it goes with the first day after rest week where I don't have an activation day. Like I'll usually need to stick to easier boulders or boulders where I'm not gripping anything really hard, or stick to some slabs. But thanks to the activation day, I can just start trying like hard boulders immediately. That being said, especially since we're doing like a pretty intense time zone shift, I was not feeling super awesome in this morning session. Definitely way better than I would have without the activation day. But yeah, basically the grip strength was just a little bit lacking, but the body was actually feeling pretty good. And actually this boulder that we're getting on here is sort of the perfect recipe for how I was feeling in the session. Not very much grip strength required at all on this boulder, but the body strength is actually more key for this boulder. And this one is actually like the newest set in this gym right now. And when we came here a couple days ago for just the easy activation session, I saw this one getting set, and this one was by my buddy Yasha. And I think that this is low-key one of the coolest boulders I've done at this gym. And I've done a lot of boulders in this gym, but this one is like really cool and really creative, and it's got some like super cool moves. Like this second move in particular is like really nice. I'm just pressing on this big slopey thing. I'm not even grabbing it. And I just have to press myself really intensely into this cross. And then we move into a really powerful shoulder sequence where you actually have to use what is like one of my super strengths, right? Where we just kind of clamp on these holds with our hips and like do a really hard shoulder move out to a pretty bad sloper. And then we even recycle back to that like second hold. And like, yeah, this one, we used every hold on the boulder. We recycled through moves, had a really cool, obvious sequence. And that just like, not only is it like just a perfect boulder in my opinion, but it was also so creative and cool that definitely one of the best boulders I've climbed in this gym and just in general in recent months. So shout out to Yasha for really cooking on that one. And that one was really satisfying. And it felt good to send something like quite hard feeling as well, like right off the bat. I'm glad that there isn't much rust to be shaken off, and we can just sort of get going with our boulder training and trying to really push the performance. Because I should also mention that we are moving into the third or fourth, whatever the final phase of this training program is, which is where we're really going to start trying to turn all of the power training that we've been doing in the first phase, like all of the campus training, all of the heavy duty workouts and strengthy bouldering, and we're gonna try and turn all that into performance. So this day one is a bit of an exception to that idea, of course, because I really had no idea how I'd be feeling today. So these first couple of days were more about volume and just making sure my body is getting a lot of moves under its system so it can shake off the rust as fast as possible. And then once I'm feeling good, which should just be after the first rest day, we're really gonna start putting emphasis on the performance. And what that means is we're gonna be doing some mock comps, some comp simulations, and even just with the sessions that are listed as normal bouldering sessions, I'm just gonna be putting a whole lot of emphasis on like every attempt, making sure every attempt counts, and having that feeling become second nature for myself. Because it's one thing to go into an attempt on a boulder thinking that, okay, I'm gonna make this attempt count. But since you don't do that all the time in training, it's kind of feels foreign to you, right? You have to feel like you're sort of turned, like you're sort of activated, and you have to put a bit more intention into trying to make the attempt count. But if I spend like 2 weeks or like a week and a half before a target event, where I try to do that on every single attempt, now it's going to become second nature. And that way, when I'm in the comp round, I'll have less to think about, because putting quality attempts on boulders will become second nature for me. And I'm always an advocate for like these sort of tactics or other aspects of climbing. It's really, really important for these things to be second nature, especially in regards to competition bouldering, because we already have so much to think about when we're trying to solve boulders in a competition. And so we just have to think about the beta, right? So if I'm thinking about trying to make an attempt count, that can distract me or take me out of the zone. And another good quick example of this idea is like what shoe you're wearing. So maybe it was in the most recent episode I was talking about this, or maybe it was a couple ago, but I said that I planned to compete in the Tomoas for the World Cup. And even though I've been wearing, I like to wear the flagships a lot in training, I want to compete in the Tomoas. Long story short is I think they're better for small footholds, and in the men's World Cup qualifier style of bouldering, small footholds are more common than volume smearing. But anyway, the point is I have to force myself to only climb and train in the Tomoas for this week and a half to 2 weeks leading up to the Prague World Cup. And that's for the same idea, that I want climbing in these shoes to become second nature, and I don't want to have to be thinking about like being intentionally like different with my footwork as to how I would normally be in my flagships. So I didn't even bring a pair of flagships to Europe because of this idea. I need to put my reps in with the Tomoas so that it feels like my foot, right? The shoe should feel like skin. And that's the idea with that. And that's also the idea with trying to make all my attempts count. I want that to become second nature while I'm about to go into an important competition. So yeah, but the other idea with that I was mentioning was that this first day, as well as day 2, I'm being a little bit less intentional about this, and we can just try and climb and get used to moving on the wall, because it's hard to be really intentional about your attempts when you can feel a little bit of insecurity in your body and how you're moving and not feeling at 100%. So I wasn't too hard on myself today. One thing I was a little bit hard about myself on, or maybe even just like feeling a bit unhappy about, was my slab skills today. So we've been trying this slab right here, which was a really awesome one. I don't know who said it, but basically that slab could have been copy and paste in the Men's World Cup qualifier. And I think it took me too long to do. Like granted, the morning session was a little shaky. You know, I'm not like in super performance mode yet, like we were just talking about, but it didn't feel good to like take too long to do that slab. So yeah, and there's like another example of that later,
So I think it's going to be really, really important to implement this idea with the slabs, especially going forward in our next few training sessions, because I don't want to be feeling insecure about my slab skills going into the event. That is never a good recipe for success. So I want to be at least feeling like I'm doing the best that I possibly can on the slab boulders, right? So if I'm putting everything I have into every attempt on the slab and I'm still not doing well, then there's nothing I can do, right? I think we were also talking about this in the last episode. At the end of the day, you just got to do what you can do, and that's your best. So as long as I'm putting my best quality attempts in on the boulders in the next few sessions, then that's all I can ask for. And I feel like I had a bit more to give in regards to that slab that we were just trying, like a bit more effort that I could have put into every attempt. But yeah, we'll focus more on that going forward. But for now, we are moving into our second session of bouldering, and I was like, I usually expect to feel better in my second session, just in general, but I was really happy with just how much better I was feeling in this session. I was actually feeling quite strong, and it's only day one after a 5-day rest week and a 6-hour time zone shift. It's like super, super relieving that I'm feeling this good, at least in like my upper body strength and just like pulling power and grip strength. I was feeling really, really epic in this session. And so now we just need to make sure that the lower body catches up and I'm not feeling like insecure on the slabs anymore. And then this boulder here, we should also shout out as being like super epic and definitely one of my favorite from the whole episode of training. And this one is also going to feature today's tip of the day. And if you've missed the past few episodes, we're doing the tip of the day at the end of the episodes now. So stay tuned till the end to see what the tip of the day from the last move of that boulder was. And then since I was feeling so much stronger, we're going to hop back on this boulder, which I was falling on in the morning session and I was not able to complete. I was struggling to get a good read of the beta for the end sequence of this one, but I also had a feeling that it was like just a little bit of a lack of grip strength as to where I was not sending like the end of the sequence. And maybe there was a sequence that I could find with a bit more grip power. And that indeed proved to be the case. In this second session, I just found it was so much easier to hold on to that left hand skinny pinch. And then it just allowed me to walk my feet up to this crimp to match the sloper, which was really cool. That was a very, very stark contrast to how I was feeling on that boulder in the morning. I felt like I could just like hold nothing on that end sequence of that boulder. And then let's also check out this boulder coming up here right now. So this one I thought looked like, okay, just a cool basic little power boulder. Maybe there's even like a foot first sequence. And so I'm like, I want to hop on this while I'm feeling strong. But this boulder like accidentally turned out to be really sick. So this cool sequence that I'm doing right now is completely improvised. And I was like surprising myself with the beta I was coming up with on the fly. I thought that maybe I would go like foot first to that hold that I campused through to, but like I said, I was very happy with the level of fitness I was feeling in this session. And I felt like I had like some extra power to play with and I could get a little bit fancy on that boulder. And like that, this is another thing I was trying to do is, since I was feeling strong in the session, I wanted to make sure that I got on the powerful, like grip strength intensive boulders during this session, just to really get that part of my body activated, right? If I'm feeling really strong in the session, but then I just go spend the whole time doing slab boulders, and then tomorrow, let's say I feel like really bad, like my sleep schedule just gets messed up and I don't feel so good. And now I'm like, okay, well, I can't really try the power boulders now because I'm not feeling strong anymore. And so now what am I going to do? Just keep doing slab? And then I never really activated my grip strength and got my fingers nice and warm and activated and de-jet lagged. So I made a point of hopping on some crimpy looking boulders, some physical looking boulders, even though there were some maybe more like fun style compy boulders that I wanted wanted to get on, I made a note of being like really intentional to force myself to go activate my fingers, activate my grip strength, so that we can get right into the tip-top shape as fast as possible coming off of this travel. And speaking of compy fun style boulders, so it's been a while since I've got on something like this. Obviously back home in Montreal, we have a lot of coordination, and the setters are really great for putting, oh man, I forgot about that fall. Putting Cordo style boulders up on the wall. But Studio Bloc just takes it to the next level. And Eric Heldman in particular, oh, perfect timing, speak of the devil. This is Eric. He's the head setter of the Studio Bloc gyms. I'm not sure if he set this boulder, but I would be surprised if he didn't. He loves to set these boulders that are just massive run moves or crazy swing moves that just go all the way across the wall and are just like an absolute adventure. So this style of bouldering was feeling a little bit foreign, and it was actually really cool to get on this boulder and reawaken that just like absolutely gymnastic style of bouldering. Because you will see a boulder like this in, say, like a semi-final round of an event sometimes. Like, this is not like a qualifying style boulder or even like a commercial boulder by any means, even though it's set commercially here right now. But definitely this is like a semi-style boulder, and it's good to be able to do this kind of boulder as a comp climber. And that one was really well set too. It was cool how he did a good job setting that first move, where it was better to continue the swing rather than stopping like I tried on some of my earlier attempts. And also, something the setters were telling me while I was climbing around was, so for the longtime viewers, perhaps you already know this about Studio Bloc, but first of all, I should talk about the grades in general. So they have like number tags from 1 to 7, and 7 tags are the hardest boulders at the Studio Bloc gyms. But basically, since Maddie and I moved back to Canada and haven't been here, I was informed of some slight changes to the grading systems at Studio Bloc. And basically, the long story short is that they're setting more 7s, but there's a wider grade range within the 7s. So basically, there's more 7s, but there's also more softer 7s. So for anyone who watched like the old Germany videos and me training in this gym and saw me like falling on a lot of 7s and not like flashing a lot of 7s, and now you're seeing me like flash a bunch of 7s and there's also just so many of them, it's because of this change. So there's like an extra 7 per set, and I think the idea is that some of the 7s now are like would have been 6s back when we were training in this gym. So yeah, that was interesting, and it was also like playing an interesting role in my sessions today, where I was trying to say, okay, like, am I performing like kind of well today? You know, I'm doing a lot of these 7s like relatively fast, but is it just because they're like the softer 7s now? And I'm like, was this like a real 7? It was just interesting. But yeah, I was also saying to the setters, especially as we're approaching the competition and we're really trying to peak, the difficulty of the boulders I'm climbing isn't really as important anymore. Like, definitely I want like sort of a prerequisite level of difficulty to climb on, but what I mean is I'm not trying to project things right now. I'm not trying to get on a boulder that's like at the physical limit of what I can climb, and I'm not trying to like try like really, really hard boulders. Basically, the name of the game right now is volume and variety. And for the most part in our training, that's sort of what I already like to go for. But like, you know, when we're back home in a high volume training phase, it's also really good to project hard boulders and test your limit and really test your physical power. But as we're like this close to a comp, that's basically the opposite of what you want to be doing. You want to be awakening every possible movement pattern in your body that you can, and just trying to get your body so good at intuiting movements and reading beta on the fly and figuring out sequences for you.
And so yeah, like we try to do this year round to like build this skill of having your body intuit sequences. But now when it's time to perform at the comp, now you have to like make sure your body is doing it as well as it has ever done it. So the point is, it's actually really great that there aren't a whole lot of like, you know, V12 plus boulders up in these gyms around the area, because that's not what I want to be getting on anyway. The grades of all these boulders are kind of perfect right now. Like every few boulders will jump on something that's like copy and paste World Cup difficulty of a qualifier boulder, which is obviously really great to practice on, especially when we, in a couple days later, when we start doing our comp simulations. But yeah, they're also just like a good difficulty to get like 1 or 2 or 3 falls out of me, and then I'm able to do it and move on pretty quick to something else. Whereas, you know, if I'm trying boulders that are super, super hard, then, you know, maybe let's say I work them for 20 minutes each. That means I'll get, you know, about like 3 boulders, maybe 4 boulders under my belt in an hour-long session. Whereas with the difficulty and the pacing of the boulders we're trying now, like in this day of training, I can't even count how many boulders I tried. So many, which is just so good. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. And these massive gyms in Germany are really some really great preparation for getting ready for a comp. And so yeah, this boulder that we're getting on now is like the last one of the first day of training. And this is the other boulder I was mentioning earlier that was psyching me out a little bit in regards to my slab skills. I just felt like I couldn't do this foot cross through move here, where you see that I'm realizing I can match like both of these footholds and do a bit more of a longer, more complicated foot sequence. But you're just supposed to cross your left foot through and then do this jump move. But I felt like I could not do it at all, which is not so great because that is a very common comp style move at any level of event. It's like foot cross through moves on slab. So I was kind of bummed that I was not able to do that. Like sure, I was able to find my own way through the sequence, but definitely psyched me out a little bit. I do wonder though if like by the time that at this session, I'm like absolutely gassed. Like I'm cooked. We had some action-packed filled sessions of bouldering and my body was definitely getting tired. So I wonder if that was playing a role in this slab here, because it was with tired legs, that's not very optimal for like balancing on these intense footholds. But yeah, I definitely want to come back tomorrow and try this one again, and hopefully it goes a bit better. But yeah, let's fast forward into the next day of training and give it up to future Zach. So here we are for the next day of training, the next day. And I want to just say something right now before I forget, because I forgot to talk about it in the first half of the episode. And that is, at the time I'm recording this episode, I have also just recently been selected for the Seoul World Cup. So I got my invitation email during the rest week. And what this means is right now we are training and preparing for not just one World Cup, but 2. And so this is super awesome because it is definitely extra stressful to be putting a lot of training and emphasis into just a single event. And that's because bouldering as a sport these days, especially in recent times, is just such an inconsistent sport. And there's so much variability on like comp style boulders and yeah, just like different rounds from round to round in a bouldering competition. You're gonna get lots of different results. And to put months of training, like stake it all on sort of 1 or 2 rounds is definitely stressful. And that's why it's always a lot more reassuring when you put in a lot of hard training for like a whole season of competitions. That's why when we were training for the North American Cups, it wasn't so stressful because you know that you have like 3 chances to show your stuff and put all of the training to work. And if you don't really put in a good performance with 3 chances, you know, chances are that's just like your performance, right? It's not that inconsistent. So basically the moral of the story is that 2 events takes a whole lot of pressure off of me. And I know that with 2 events, I'm gonna show a performance that represents the shape that I'm in. Or I'll just get super unlucky, but you can't account for that. 2 events, in my opinion, is a pretty perfect amount of like, okay, you're gonna be able to show what you have over the course of 2 events. And so, yeah, that was like a really great email to get right before coming to Germany, especially as we're moving into the performance aspect of training, and I'm going to be just naturally judging myself a bit more. If I am only like trying to judge myself and put a whole lot of pressure on myself to perform at just one event, it's going to be very harsh judgment, and I'm going to start racking up the pressure, and the pressure is going to build and build until comp day, and that is not a recipe for success. So having now basically doubled the chances is really, really good, and it's helping me achieve a little bit better of a headspace. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't forget to talk about that, because I've been aware of it for a few days now, and I almost forgot to say it in this episode. So yeah, we have 2 World Cups coming up, Prague and then Seoul, which is only a week later, I'll add. I guess I didn't say that. Right after the Prague World Cup, we're going to Japan for a week, and then we have the Seoul World Cup. So lots of exciting stuff coming up. But anyway, we've been trying some of the other moderates that I haven't got on in the gym. There's so many boulders to go around, and now here we are getting to this one, which is proving to not be one of the sort of moderate boulders. This one, they were setting yesterday while we were having our first couple sessions, and I was watching the setters forerunning it, and this jump move here that I'm trying, they were making look pretty spicy, and so I could tell that this one was going to be a hard one, and it proved to be, like I expected it to be hard, but it proved to be even harder than it looked. This is normally a move that's right up my alley, just any sort of dyno, but I was just really kind of flailing weirdly around on this boulder. As you can see, my falls are really bizarre, and I don't really look close, but I feel, it's funny, like every attempt I'm putting on this boulder, I feel like there's just one little thing I'm missing, and then I will stick the move, even though I don't look close at all. And that proved to be the case. It might have been 1 or 2 tries ago at this point, I realized the sort of trick to unlocking this move was just to tilt my left hand, sort of taking my pointer finger and rotating it downwards a bit more, and this just angled my hand to the point where I could get my pinky to stay on longer. So you'll see we finally stick this move after a lot of tries, and my pinky actually came off, but by tilting my hand like a little bit, it helped me keep the pinky longer and control that crazy position. So yeah, while I'm like having a bit less pressure on myself right now, I'm definitely still judging my form a bit, and this is just happening naturally. So that boulder was actually starting to psych me out. Like that, we put on so many tries on that boulder, and I was not feeling close, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is a World Cup kind of move right here. World Cup difficulty, World Cup style, and I'm just not doing it. And so that was really frustrating. And in this instance, it came down to like a piece of micro beta. And I'd say with this micro beta of like this hand tilt, it seems so nuanced when I'm trying to describe it right now, but it actually was sort of a game-changing bit of micro beta. And I feel like I probably stuck that move on attempt 4 or 5 with that bit of micro beta, which maybe doesn't seem like such a big revelation or something, but what that means actually is if I were to just realize that, I could send that boulder in 5 minutes with that information. And it's just sort of being able to understand that better. So the reason that this is reassuring for me is it says, okay, physically, I can do that boulder in a competition. I was kind of just brain farting during this training session. I mean, not even brain farting, I wasn't having that little bit of micro beta click, and it took me like 20 tries for it to click. But in an event, sometimes your senses are just heightened and things will click for you easier. And that's basically the important part, is like that I'm physically able to do that, and that reassures me that the mental side will come on comp day. At least that's how I think about it. And so yeah, it was good to work that boulder and go through that mental process. But anyway, at this point, we finished our morning session on day 1, and I went and did like a quick workout and hangboard at a different gym called Boulder House, but I didn't end up filming it this time. So yeah, maybe I'll film like our last workout where we do our 1 rep maxes, but I didn't end up filming that today. So now here we are at the end of the episode, and we're just gonna jump into our tip of the day. So for today's tip of the day, we're gonna be not talking about something very advanced in my opinion, and we're gonna be covering something pretty fundamental. And that is the idea of recycling holds, or also just being aware of the fact that once you use a hold in a sequence, that doesn't mean that the hold is kind of like disappeared from potential hand sequences further on in the climb. And this one is a great example. So when we first start using this hold, where my right foot is on right now, we're kind of using the bottom right edge. But then later on, you see that I'm actually able to use it for the last move as well, to readjust my foot with my hand grabbing the hold. And this idea is also especially important these days, where we're just seeing so many big holds and volumes in commercial setting, and smaller holds are kind of fading away. This is just even more applicable with the big holds, because when this boulder is getting set, it's probably just sort of has the bottom right side ridge in mind when the setter is creating the sequence. But obviously this hold is quite big, and it goes all the way up like, another foot in vertically in regards to this boulder. And so that means that this whole surface area is also in play, and it helps me like adjust my foot into a better position when I'm at the top of this boulder. And this is usually where this idea will come into play, is to like adjust your feet in particular. You can press off of a hold from earlier in the sequence. You can like grab it in any which way. And in this case, even just this really bad slopey area of the hold is enough for me to wiggle my foot into a better position, bring my hips in closer to the wall, and reach this last move. So yeah, the moral of the story is just start to be a little bit more deliberate and conscious about looking back down. If you find yourself struggling in a sequence, look back down, see if there are any holds that you can grab or press off to better your position and try and work through a crux move. And then with enough reps of being conscious about this idea, it will become second nature. And that's sort of where I'm at this point. I didn't even think necessarily to come back down and grab this hold. My mind kind of just noticed it, and my hand went there naturally, and I adjusted my foot. So yeah, with enough reps, this will become second nature, and this is a pretty awesome fundamental to start working on.